Hi, I'm Martin Jarvis, and once again, I want to welcome you to another perspective, an issue of the heart. Last week we talked about how God judges the heart of a man. God looks upon, God sees the heart of a man. And that's a good thing for us. As we discussed last week, we spend a lot of time, too much time, judging other folks by a standard that God doesn't judge. Our judgment comes from our heart, and that is what we are being judged by. And I think the conclusion of the message last week, because I went to work and this woman came up to me and she said, "Don't judge me." And she was laughing because she got from the program, nobody should be judging her. But that's kind of not exactly the point of the message. The point of the message was not to use God looks at the heart of a man and not the outward appearance to justify what we do. But instead to help us stop judging other folks. I think it's very important for us to be very critical on ourselves. Not critical on ourselves to be negative about ourselves, but just striving to be the best that we can be. So today we're going to talk about potential. The best that we can be. That place that we can attain, okay? And if there's really a place and if there's a way to miss your potential. I always believed, and I think you can probably attest or believe as well, that when a baby comes into the world, it's like they have so much potential, so much is out there, just ready for them. Anything is possible, and even with Obama being president, we can see even anything is possible within reason. So when that baby comes into the world, the potential seems endless. But as you grow, as you are exposed to things, positive things and negative things, choices are being made as you get older and older. It's like every moment of growth, the ceiling of potential lowers. And so I think we can all agree that pretty much when we come to the point of adulthood in our lives that we have missed opportunities. And so we've missed or wasted our potential. That's a sad thing to think about, really, wasted potential. Look at my son today. He graduated from college, from the university last year. And to be 24, now he's 24, to be 24 years old, with a college degree, no wife, no kids, just a dog, no bills, no student loans or debt or anything like that. And then I look at my life. I'm like, dang, I must have wasted some potential, because he's got a great situation that I really never looked at or took advantage of for my own life. And I think that's why the Bible tells us that it's not wise for us to compare ourselves to one another, looking at another individual, and begin to feel like, man, I've missed it, or I've messed up. I think we can all do that. There's always somebody that we can look up at, or people we can look down to. We can, oh, I should have gotten there. He's better than me. Or I look down here, I'm better than that person. But the reality is, this is a journey that we walk alone. I mean, God is always with us, of course, but as far as other human beings, we walk alone. And there are folks that come along the way, and some stay along the way, walk with us longer than others. But really, we walk this journey alone, and so we can't compare ourselves. The potential is the potential of an individual, not of individuals, okay? Even, of course, individuals born in the same family, it doesn't matter, we're individuals. So we can't compare ourselves to one another. But we're going to talk about potential. We're going to talk about meeting our potential, making that potential, or even wasting our potential. And can we miss our potential? I think the answer is yes and no. So we're going to turn to the book of Matthew, the 25th chapter. We're going to talk about potential. I think sometimes the difficulty that we have when we read Scripture, or when we have conversations, or anything, when we talk to our kids, that sometimes the point is being missed. Because we're looking at it from this perspective, while the story is being told from another perspective. I tell my daughter often, when we're talking, when I'm explaining something to her, when we're doing math or just life or stories or whatever, especially math, because I'll try to be explaining something to a particular process or a concept, and she doesn't get it, and she might get frustrated. And I say, honey, look, if you don't get it, if you don't get something that I'm explaining to you, it's my fault. Because I'm the teacher, I'm the one expressing this to you, so evidently I didn't explain it properly. Okay, so I take all the pressure off of her. If I'm the one telling the story, it's up to me to make sure you understand. If you don't understand, it's not your fault, okay? We see things through our own perspective, and we not through the perspective of the storyteller if the storyteller isn't gifted enough, okay? And I think children are a great practice for that, getting them to understand, because with desperation, we want them to understand, because there's only a short time that they're with us on this planet. They must understand before they go out there in the real world. I mean, come on, 17, 18, 19, 20, it's just too young. But if we turn to the book of Matthew, the 25th chapter, starting in the 14th verse, we're going to talk about a man that had servants and that was going to travel to a faraway country. So he had these 3 servants that he gave what the Bible calls talents or gifts to, something to hold until he came back. So the Lord, the master, was leaving. 3 servants, gave one 5 talents, another 2, another 1. When he was away, the servant with 5 turned his 5 into another 5. The servant with 2 turned his 2 into another 2. 4, gave him 4. But that last servant who had just been given 1 didn't do anything with it. As a matter of fact, he buried it, dug a hole and buried it, gave it back to the master when he came home. What I want to suggest today is oftentimes we minister this message and we look at this as talents because we're using the word talents. And talents is also a form of money, okay, in this particular story. But talents, we often think about the gifts and talents that God has given us, that God has bestowed upon our lives, and how we've used that which God has given us. And that's the way I see it as well. We all have talents, even according to this story, that each was given according to his ability. Okay, wasn't given anything more than he could handle, anything more that was outside of who he was, his ability. First turned his into more, second turned his into more, the second did nothing. What I want to suggest today is what these gentlemen turned their abilities into, were their potential. It was the potential that was there. The 5 talents that the individual was given, the potential for that 5 was 10. The potential for the 2 talents the second gentleman was given, the potential for those 2 talents was 4. And the potential that this other gentleman was given, that was given 1, the potential for his talent was 2. Okay, that's what we can kind of understand from this story. And so when you double that which you've been given, and double is just a term here, just for the sake of understanding this story just a little bit better, the 2 gentlemen, the one that had doubled his from 5 to 10, and the other from 2 to 4, they were the same. One hadn't done anything greater than the other. What God had given them, what God had bestowed upon him, they reached their potential, okay? And this is all the story is talking about, is potential. Until the last gentleman, he didn't exercise, he didn't win his potential. And so the abilities, the talents were given to these gentlemen, and as from a spiritual perspective, just understand that, especially as a child of God, you have particular gifts, you have particular talents, certain things that you can do, that you are able to do. But if you don't hone those things, if you don't use those things, if you don't exercise what you've been given, a positive, greater potential will never be reached. Now the argument could be made that, when you die, whatever you reached, that was your potential, and I understand that as well. But there are things that we can do that are greater. And I think that's what we're looking at in this story today, is the worth, is the value that the master, or that God has on every human being that he's given us. He's given us talents. He's given us avenues to attain a potential greater than where we start. And the question is, what have you done with what you've been given? And so we can waste our potential, in a sense, in this story with this gentleman, a wasted potential, sort of like from an accounting perspective. A loss is not simply money that you had and you lost. A loss is as well money that you could have gained but didn't. That's a loss as well, and that's the potential we're talking about here today. What could you have done with what you were given, and where are you now, and why? Okay. Now, as we understand from last week's program, where God doesn't judge an individual by outward exterior appearances, but he judges an individual by the heart, I'm suggesting that when we're given to understand in the story that every man was given to his ability, that's the condition of the heart, or the individual heart, mind, psyche of an individual, what he can, what he cannot do. So God doesn't expect anything more of you than what you can do, okay? But there is something that you can do, and the question is, are you doing what you can do? Now, this is very difficult, okay? This is very difficult because this is where that self-judgment comes in. This is where we have to critically look at ourselves. The Japanese have this saying, or have this idea that the most important thing in life is a mirror. It's a mirror because when you're looking in a mirror, looking at yourself, you can see truth. For real. Okay. Well, if you just have a mask on and you're not looking at yourself, that's who you are. Okay. It's only when you begin looking in the mirror you recognize that this isn't me. This is a mask. And so this is one of the biggest negatives, the obstacles in us attaining our potential is the mask that we wear. Because if we're walking in a particular persona that we are not, if we're wearing a particular mask that's not really us, if we're being somebody who we are not, emulating someone else, desiring to be like someone else, like looking at that guy up there and trying to be like that individual, we're not even on the road to attaining our potential because we don't really know who we are. It's very important that we know who we are. Okay? This is the condition of the heart. We have to get in touch with ourselves. I think we've seen over the past 2 presidential terms, a traditional Christian church in this nation that is pretty jacked up. That has been wearing a mask, has lost sight of who they are, if they ever knew. And so how can you attain your potential? How can you attain your potential if you don't know who you are? You can't. And so I think we have an opportunity here to look at the church, to look at ourselves, to look at some of the ministers, and I can't even blame it on the ministers, because this is what you're born into. This is the religion you're born into. This is the mindset, the idea of what religion or what Christianity is supposed to be like. All we know is what we've come into. We are victims to this thing in religion, just like a child is a victim to being born into an unhealthy household. What is unhealthy, this child just thinks is the way that it is. And if not corrected, if not given another model to follow, to model himself or herself after, that child is going to grow up with the same sickness, with the same maladies. That's the condition of many of our lives. So there is no joy, there is no peace. How can we have peace? This is the confusion. We don't know whether to chase after riches or to have no riches. We just don't know how to act. And what I'm saying is that there is a simplicity in this. God is the simplicity, and the scripture that tells us that we can have a peace that surpasses all understanding. I was trying to explain to my daughter the other night as well. I had to first explain what surpass means. What does surpass mean? Surpass means to go beyond. And understanding, to go beyond understanding, to have a peace that goes beyond understanding. We don't have that. And see, what I'm believing and what I've been speaking on for years now is that it's often very difficult to know what is truth and what is not truth. Because we could all use the same Bible, read the same scriptures, but from church to church, from individual to individual, we come up with our own understanding, and not from a negative perspective, not because we're bad people, but because of who has influenced us. This is what we believe. What I'm suggesting today, it's very difficult to know what truth is. And so in order to find truth, often we have to look at the results of what's manifesting in our lives. And is it working? And so when the scripture tells us that we have a peace that surpasses understanding, and that we're supposed to have a peace that surpasses understanding, and we know that we're always worried, we're always negative, we're always, kind of jacked up and all, we can pretty much assume that there's something wrong with the equation, with the spiritual equation in our lives. And it's not good enough just to gloss past it and just not to deal with it, because we're not even pursuing our potential. We're not even moving upward because we don't know who we are in God. Now, let me break this down, the peace part first, because we're gonna address this potential, and I'm gonna give you some hope. I don't care how old you are or how many opportunities have been missed or where you are right now. Don't look at anybody but yourself. Okay? Don't look at anybody but yourself. As far as potential, what I see, when I say that you can waste your potential, but then you can't. Because at whatever time, oftentimes wasted potential or the realization of wasted potential is a catalyst. It can either be a catalyst for something negative or something positive, okay? And so we find a lot of negativity in the church, a lot of depressed folks in the church because they don't have a peace that surpasses understanding. The peace that surpasses understanding is simple. I don't believe it's a peace that you're sitting there, you're feeling upset, you're saying, oh God, give me a peace, and all of a sudden this supernatural peace comes upon you and you're okay. The peace that surpasses understanding is your belief in God, okay? It's just simply that. It's not some spiritual, magical thing that comes upon you where you're not worrying about what everybody else is worrying about. It's logical. It's that you have a reality of understanding of God, is that God is with you, God is in your life, and simply that's where your peace is, if you really believe. See, I'm also convinced that we have bodies and bodies of believers and believers and believers that are generational believers that don't really believe. Because the moment an issue or situation comes up, there goes the peace, there goes the joy, there goes the God-mindedness. Now I got to take care of this myself. But it is a peace that surpasses understanding, because it's just the logic that God is with you always. The other day, my daughter and wife were sitting at the table, and my daughter's wrist was hurting, and I said, "Give me your wrist," and I prayed for it. My wife, reached over and put her hand on her, and we prayed for her wrist. And it wasn't long after her wrist wasn't hurting. Now, some might say, well, it was psychosomatic, we can logically break it down, but the bottom line is that we have something that that we can go to, that we have a God that we can pray to, we have a God that we can believe in and that we trust in. And that's where peace comes from. Now, it's easy for someone that doesn't believe to look and say, oh, that's ridiculous, that's in your mind. I was that person. I was an atheist for 10 years. I argued those arguments. But my reality is that God is. And that's what I embrace, so that's where my peace comes from. And that's where our peace must come from, simply that God is. And that surpasses understanding of many folks, okay? And that's it. So when you recognize that God is and God is in your life, that's like step one to getting some clarity. And wasted potential, what we need to begin to look at is when situations are jacked up in our lives, not to just hunker down and just get depressed, but to use that as the catalyst to bounce back and say, oh, okay, this is kind of jacked up. Let me see if I can fix this, okay? And we always have to be able to challenge ourselves, challenge our beliefs, because this is often what's causing our downfall, our demise, is what we believe is true. So when you look at your life and you see that something is wrong or something hasn't been right, fix it. Figure it out. but see, that's what the challenge is, because oftentimes if we look at a situation that's jacked up in our life, that's just not working, we have to begin to challenge what we believe, challenge our belief system, challenge what we've embraced, and we're not willing to do that. We worship the belief and not God. We have to understand that we cannot grasp everything. We don't have a bead on the totality of all truths. That is only God, and we never will. We are finite. We are very limited in our ability to grasp and to understand God. And I think the road that we need to be on is coming to a place to recognize that the journey that we walk is a journey of discovery. And as we recognize that we are walking with God, we'll begin to see things all along the path of that journey. Some things that we've seen before, but now are taking on a different meaning in our life, okay? I remember I used to practice the martial art, and there was this one kung fu school that instead of having belts or sashes, they had on the back of their uniform a circle. And the beginner had this empty circle on his shirt, on his back, on his outfit. And then as you would progress up the rankings, there might be a yellow, then there might be a blue, there might be a purple, colored in that circle on the back. But when you attain the ultimate level, the master level in that particular art, you had an empty circle. The same empty circle you had when you started. I think there is a spiritual significance in that. Is that you start off knowing nothing. And as you walk along this path in your journey, you begin to learn things. I understand, I see. But when you finally get to that place of mastering, you realize you know nothing at all, you see nothing at all. It's like as it pertains to God, it's like the more insight and understanding you have about God, the source, the creator of all, for real, when you master that, if you could master it, but the more closer you get to, more knowledge you get, finally you come to a point to realize you know nothing at all. And the more knowledge you get, the more reality is that you're further away in your understanding. So it's the novice that believes they know everything. Have you ever been talking to someone in conversation on the internet where, they're always correcting you? No, that's not right as far as the religion or Christianity or spirituality is concerned. Those folks are like down here. Because when you finally get to a point of really trying to begin to grasp and understanding and seeing some things, what you realize is the vastness of God, of the creator, of the source, that you're not there and that you never will be there. And that the more insightful you get, the further away you realize that you are. Okay? And so that right there is the beginning of a journey to begin self-discovering, and then you realize that you cannot understand that greatness, that vastness of God. You are a part of. God is a part of you. And so however great you begin to see that God is, however everywhere you begin to see, however control that you begin to see that God is, you walk in that, and your peace is in there. Again, as far as not being able to waste potential, I think this, possibly, just something to consider, that if your downfall, if your slip-up was a catalyst for you to realize something is wrong, and now you begin on a positive upward trajectory, then wherever you end up when you die, that was your potential. And so whatever mistakes you think you made, however missed opportunities you believe you've missed, however far down you are compared to where you think you could have been had you made the right moves, this was your destiny, this was your potential, okay? And you say, oh, come on now, that's a cop-out, well, you can say that. Well, you look at the Apostle Paul. He was Saul for most of his life. He was a learned man. He was a member of the Sanhedrin. He was persecuting Christians, killing Christians, and imprisoning them. And he had his revelation, his epiphany of God on the road to Damascus that day. And his life changed. And now we read his writings in the Bible, and we put his writings on the same level, if not greater, than the words of Jesus. That's another story for another time. The fact is, so then, did Paul miss his potential? I mean, come on, you got other people in the Bible like Timothy and Stephen and probably Peter, folks that had changed earlier in life than Paul did. But then Paul did great things. So no, Paul didn't miss his potential. That journey of his life, even the negativity, that was part of the path of his life to his potential, okay? So I'm just suggesting then, so you might say, well, what do I need to do? I guess I don't need to do anything if I can't miss my potential. Well, that attitude might be the attitude that kept you at a particular level that ultimately was your potential. What I'm suggesting is, yes, maybe your potential is already etched, maybe because whatever you are at when you die, that was your potential. So you can't worry about that. You are here, you are right now. Begin affecting your life right now, making as many positive advances as you can, choices as you can, and lifting your end. Make sure your end is way up here. You've heard the old saying, when the guy was at the cemetery looking at the headstone, and he said this is the most, when it says the birth year hyphen death, that those two numbers are not the most important numbers on that tombstone. Maybe they're the most important numbers, but the most important symbol is that hyphen, the life of the individual, what happened in between when the individual was born and when the individual died. That's that path. And so really what I'm giving you then is some encouragement. Because it's very easy as you get older to begin to look at your life and think about all the choices you made, all the mistakes you made, and where you could have been had you done this, had you done that. I don't do that. Because you don't know if you had taken a left turn instead of a right, or had made this right move instead of that wrong move, if that could have ultimately led you to a place, that could have been worse. Because some of these politicians and some of these educated lawyers and attorneys and doctors that are going to jail, I mean, up until the point of corruption, they were making all the right moves, the moves that you and I didn't make. They went to college, they went to further on their education, they became attorneys and doctors and politicians and making a lot of money, but something happened along the path that corrupted them and they were jacked. That could have been you, that could have been me. So the situation that you're in right now might very well be better than what it could have been. You cannot waste time thinking about the way things were. Where you are is where you are. What are you going to do now? That's all I'm saying. And it can be great. It can be great. I was talking to this gentleman the other day, but the choices you have to make. It's like you might have lived more than half of your life and you have less to live on than you have lived already. But your end can be far greater than your beginning. And that's all that people are going to remember you by. So use this opportunity. So yes, you can waste and miss opportunities. But even that wasted and missed opportunity could be a catalyst for something greater. Embrace that. I think we're coming to a place in the religion that we're getting tired. We're getting tired of what, forget it. We're cool. That's good enough. I guess we'll pick this up next week. I do want to thank you for joining me for another perspective once again. And I'm going to leave you this one tidbit you know, or at least you should know, that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done or what you're doing right now, that God truly, truly loves you. He really does. And so do I.